But first, let's start with some apparent good news for everyone who's not a Victorian. And aren't you glad if you're not? The official unemployment figures today, well, they seem good. Instead of going up, as expected over the last month, they went down by 0.7%. That's 110,000 Australians back at work. More than an MCG of people back at work. The unemployment rate now, 6.8%. That's obviously still too high, but it's great, right? Much less than what we expected. No need to panic or lower borders or ease bans anytime soon. And well, you hang on to that thought, that these are great figures. Let's first look, though, at the national picture, the powerhouse states. Unemployment in New South Wales, with few restrictions, actually dropped 0.5% to under the national average. Victoria, lots of bans, unemployment went up. It's now way above the average. And look at Queensland, which has been so badly run by Labor for years now. Unemployment there is terrible. Even though they've had a big fall in unemployment, it's still 7.5%. Yet its Premier is still smashing its tourism industry with her crazy border bans. Anyway, the Treasurer today made the obvious point. Learn from New South Wales.
Well, I'd point you to New South Wales, where the unemployment rate is below that national average at 6.7%. And it's significantly below where it is in Western Australia. I think it's at 7%, and Queensland, which is, I think, at 7.5%. So New South Wales has been a standout in terms of its performance, both in managing the virus, dealing with the number of cases that it is on a daily basis and containing that, but also keeping its economy open.
But if New South Wales is the inspiration, Victoria is the big warning. You just see how the bans are putting workers out of business. In fact, let me tell you the story of a Melbourne woman, Jacinta Damaza, who writes what happened to her oldest son when he tried to get to work in Victoria. He's in construction. Now, to get to his job, her son has to catch a train and then a bus, and then he has to walk. And he still does this, even though his hours have been halved by the virus bans, and even though his mates who decide to stay at home, they actually get more money than him from the government. So more fool him for being the kind of Australian who has a go and is loyal to his boss, still wants to pitch in. You see, because police stop him on the way to work. Where are you going? Show us your papers. What is it, we under occupation now? He shows his permit to work. You actually got to have a permit to work in Victoria. Can you believe this? He shows his permit to work, but the hours are filled in the wrong column. So he's fined. Then, because it's now more than 5 kilometres from home without a lawful excuse, he's fined again. And then, because his learner's permit still has its old address in it, the police need to look at it to see, hey, are you 5 kilometres from home and all that, he's fined a third time, fined 3 times the hamburger with the lot. And then he's told to go back home. Loses a day's pay plus $2,000 in fine, plus. All because he wants to go to work in the police state of socialist Victoria. People, this is a social disaster being created in that stupid state. At least Victoria Police now say they're going to review all this, check body cam and all that. They should. This is a police state totally out of control, terrorising law-abiding people who actually want to work. But back to these great unemployment figures. A 1% rise in the number of people in jobs. A reality check. A 1% rise in jobs, but just a 0.1% rise in hours actually worked. All those extra people, but doing virtually no extra work. Now, sure, I know that Victoria's been a basket case and that explains some of it, but the rest of Australia has been lifting its bans too slowly. That's right, far too slowly, but they've been lifted. Actually, it should be lifted faster. You know, the infection's so low in all these other states. But anyway, people should be going back to work in droves, you would think. But hours worked in the past month, on average, went up by almost nothing. So that is not a good sign at all. I think all this is when we are spending billions and billions of dollars each month on JobKeeper subsidies to keep hundreds of thousands of people in jobs through this crisis. That money cannot last forever.
We know the effective rate of unemployment is well over 10%, and can peak a lot higher than that, but you can't keep the Australian economy on JobKeeper forever.
And that's what worries me about all this coverage about, oh, look, these unemployment figures today are really good news, etc., because that's just going to encourage this lack of urgency you see, particularly from state premiers and a lot of other people, about getting back to work. Now, a lot of people, this is just going to make them think, this state of affairs, well, this can go on forever. But look closer. We really are living on borrowed money and borrowed time.